I'm David Rich, and I'm a landscape designer and constructor, and I work with my brother Harry and my dad, and Mum pops in a little bit now and then.
We all kind of work together. Me and Dave do a lot more designing.
Having two heads is great because you don't get too bogged down in my ideas right.
You've got to win your idea.
Yeah, well, I'm more than happy to tell Harry his idea is wrong, and he's more than happy to tell him mine is wrong, so I think that really helps with creating something great. Yeah. I think our kind of general ethos for our company is to try and reconnect people with nature. Growing up in the Welsh countryside, that's always been with us, it's kind of innate, we're part of the wild, so I think to try and give people that definitely live in cities that kind of connection is really key for us.
So this year we are staging a main show garden at Chelsea Flower Show. We've got a sponsorship from Cloudy Bay in association with Vital Earth.
But the main sponsor being Cloudy Bay has given us the brief of giving the characteristics of the Pinot Noir and the Sauvignon Blanc, trying to represent them throughout the whole garden.
Which gives us this kind of platform and allows us to preview what we see as being pioneering ideas in the garden world.
So we've linked with the wines in the garden through the hard landscaping and the soft landscaping as well. So with plants we found it quite easy, but we didn't want to make it too literal. So the Pinot Noir is quite earthy, quite rustic tones, nothing too kind of literal plummy or red. One of our key plants that we're hopefully going to get is the Digitalis Ferruginea. It's a very architectural plant, really a kind of spiral plant, and it potentially could grow, you know, to the size of me. But that's quite a tight, quite a rusty, quite a rugged foxglove, and that represents the Pinot Noir because that's quite a textured, quite an architectural wine. And then with the Sauvignon Blanc, we've got quite fresh white plants, so really lush green foliage, but with a white head.
I think we really wanted to keep the planting quite natural. So we came up with this idea of having this matrix of grasses. So we're going to flood the whole space with 3 varieties of grasses.
So helping the Rich Landscape boys, we're growing about 3,500 plants for their actual garden. But to get the 3,500 perfect, we grow about 10,000.
You can start by kind of warming plants up or cooling them down and trying to control them, but we wanted to have plants that are flowering at the right time. And that's kind of part of our ethos as well, not to force anything.
The Taxus Baccata domes, they're about 45 years old, brought over from Belgium and Holland, that area there. They arrived with us about 3 days ago and everyone just stopped in their tracks. They are seriously stunners.
So I met Nick Jeffries, an artist, through a friend of mine, and we absolutely love his work, the way that he uses butterflies in a kind of expressive way, and we got in contact and collaborated, and he came up with a piece which is going to depict those characteristics of the planting through the butterflies in the work.
My name's Nick Jeffrey. I'm a natural artist and I predominantly use butterflies in my artwork to help bridge a gap between art and conservation. Whilst I was out in Colombia, travelling down to the south into the Valley de Cauca, I met this wonderful family which is headed up by a mother and a daughter, and I made a great connection with a daughter in particular called Vanessa, who runs and manages the butterfly farming community in El Arenillo, which is a small little village in southern Colombia.
The people in Alas de Colombia works as a team with different species assigned and with different spaces assigned for butterfly houses. Here you can see a quota of pupas that each producer group give to release to the environment to keep the population stable.
They turned around the villages from being unfortunately ravaged with violence and aggression and massive problems due to the drug sort of war. And now farming butterflies, they're building their own homes, building their own conservatories, keeping the rainforest intact. And they've really helped me forge great things in butterfly farming and supply me with most of my insects now, which have been integrated into the artwork for Chelsea. I'm using specifically coloured butterflies to match the planting design. I'm using sort of hues of deep red, which strike up and match with the Pinot Noir, so shades on that, and I've varied that with sort of oranges, pinks. And then I've got small whites, Leptidia synapsis, which match with the anemones that they're planting in the garden, and other sort of small white flower heads. And try to balance the colours and create something which is using small, medium and large butterflies to create space, movement and the feeling of flight.
For us, it's about that collaboration with artists and really about having new ideas, fresh ideas that we feel kind of needs to push gardening and the design fact of it forwards.
So there was a shack is here, and then there.
We've tried to have this kind of balance between traditional and textured oak with fresh, kind of crisp concrete. If I do a bird's eye plan, you can kind of see these two courtyards that we were talking about that kind of depict the attributes of the Sauvignon Blanc and the Pinot Noir. The kind of rusticness and earthiness of the oak, and then the clean crispness of the concrete. We've tried to mingle these materials in as much as possible so it doesn't feel too isolated, but at the same time we wanted to create these two different spaces. The main kind of focal feature of the garden is this shack, which is a 2.5 metre by 2.5 metre moving building, which runs on tracks. There's two areas for the shack. One is up here and one is down the bottom right. And its journey is going to go along this rail. So Peter Downey is our blacksmith, who's created the whole kind of skeleton of the garden.
Everything to do with the shack, the rails, the turntables, the boundary feature, the shuttering where the concrete gets poured, everything kind of comes into that.
Basically, we started with the grand plan which these boys drew us, and it was a full-size plan, 50:1, and then we scaled up from that. So it makes the garden build easier, we thought, by having one main structure that the two turntables can bolt on, and then everything could be built out from there.
If you had this in your garden, you know, you don't have to have it in one spot. You can utilise a couple of areas in your garden. I mean, you could have more stop-off points. It's endless, really. But I think it's just the idea that you can enjoy wine at different ends of the garden. You get a completely different perspective. Sitting over there to sitting over here will be you are in a different space.
It's going to be floating.
Yeah, it's going to look like
Well, it will hover. It will float, won't it? Which is going to be epic.
When you're sat in the shack drinking the gin and tonic, you just press the touch screen and off it goes.
The Chelsea Flower Show is really important because there is a brief, but you're not really confined. You can be as experimental as you want. And I think that's super important for being able to express your ideas. And it is an exhibition. It's kind of installment. So as well as the garden, you really want to wow people with what you can do in a space. And that's how Rich Landscapes, that's how me and Harry see it when we're designing, is a space, not a garden. So you can do anything you want in there to kind of improve people's lifestyle and outdoor living. So I think to be able to showcase an idea like a moving shack to people, hopefully then moving on in the future, people are not so tunnel visioned in what a garden can be, they're more open. This garden that we're doing now is a full show garden. We did a show garden last year, but it was 10 by 15 metres, whereas this one's now 10 by 22. So those 7 metres, I think we've tried squeezing a hell of a lot in, but it'll look good.
We did Cardiff, RHS Cardiff, and then we worked onto a small artisan garden at Chelsea, then a small show garden, and now we're doing a big one. But it's just hard work and persistence and belief, really, that's got us to where we're at.